If you've never used a domino jointer before, this is how they work. First, you want to choose which one you use. This is the 500, it's generally for smaller stuff. This is the 700, and it's for bigger wood. I'm gluing up this big walnut tabletop here, and so I want to use some of the bigger dominoes. These are the 14 millimeter by 140 millimeter. And only the 700 will cut the mortises big enough for these dominoes. And there's a few easy steps to get set up so you can cut your mortises. The first thing we're going to want to do is toggle this lever right here, which lets you bring this fence down to 90 degrees, and then you'll lock it again. Next, you're going to want to know the thickness of the board that you're working with. These are 2 inches or about 50 millimeters. It helps with Festool to know things in millimeters, because everything on here is in millimeters. You can still do it in inches, it just takes one more step. We want to set the height of this guide so that it makes the machine cut the mortises right in the center of these boards. On the side right here, you'll see this right here that has these different numbers on it. 10 millimeter, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 40. And whatever the thickness of your wood is, you just want to divide that in half. So this is 50 millimeter thick wood. So I want to move this until it's at 25 right here. And then on this side of the machine, there's another lever right here, which will toggle down. And that allows this fence to then move up and down. Now you'll see this little leg right here, and you'll see this sort of step shape right here. I've got it set at 25. So I'm going to push it down until it hits that step. And then on this back side, I'm going to lock it again. And now the center of the cutter right here is 25 millimeters from this fence, which is the center of these boards right here. Now, if you don't want to work in millimeters, or you don't want to divide the millimeters in half, you're going to come over here to this side of the board. You're going to put your ruler on the edge, and you're going to measure down and make a mark halfway. And then you can bring the domino over and set it on your board. And right here, there's a little notch right there, which represents the center of the cutter. So you can move the domino over until you find the line that you made. Then use this toggle, loosen it off, and adjust it up or down until that notch meets up with your line. And then you know you're cutting exactly in the center of your board. With that done, there's only 2 more things to do. The first one is we want to set how far the cutter goes into the board. So these dominoes right here are 14 by 140 millimeter. The 14 just means the diameter of the cutter right here, and the 140 is the distance. So we want this domino to go halfway into this board and halfway into this board. Half of 140 is 70, so we want to set the cutter so it cuts 70 mils this way and 70 mils that way. And you do that right down here. You can see down here you have numbers all the way from 15 all the way up to 70. And so you'll push these 2 buttons and move it all the way over to 70 right there. And the last thing to consider is this toggle right here. You'll see up top here, when I move this back and forth, it moves that to those 2 settings. This means a tight domino, and this means a loose domino. So the tight domino is exactly this thickness right here. So you want to make sure your lines that you mark out are exactly perfect, and then your dominoes will fit together perfect. But if for some reason you need a little bit of wiggle room, maybe you're working on a complex joint or something like that, and you have to angle it in when it comes in, then you can set it to the loose one, and that way it gives you a little bit of room. Now, if you look closely down here, you can see I already have a line that's already drawn across both of these boards. And I've laid out 4 more lines all the way down this joint and this joint here for all the dominoes that I want to put in. So now all I have to do is pull these boards apart, and this one I'm going to have to flip all the way around. So I have access to this side for cutting the mortises. Now, if you look here, you can see that line that I made right here. I'm going to place the domino down on there. And then you'll see here, there's a center line right down the middle. I'm going to move over until that center line exactly lines up on top of the pencil mark that I made. And then I know I'm going to be cutting exactly halfway down into this board on all boards so that they'll match up. And this line and the cut line on that side are going to match up exactly once I turn this board around and put them together. And then with the machine hooked to power into the vacuum, you'll come and line everything up, and then you'll turn it on, and with slow and even pressure, you'll work your way in and cut the mortise. And now it's made this nice oval shaped cut for these dominoes to be able to fit into. Now I'll show you how it makes those oval shaped holes. If I put a wrench in here and lift this green thing up, it will pop apart. Now don't do this at home, I just want to show you. There's a round cutter on here, and that round cutter will spin, and obviously that just makes a circle, but at the same time that it's spinning, it's also going back and forth. And as it plunges down, it makes that round circle, but in a sideways pattern that makes those oval shapes. Which is a pretty cool solution to be able to cut the slots that we need for these dominoes. Now I can just move down and cut all 5 mortise slots. Now I finished drilling the holes all the way along both sides. So I can push this one back in the middle, spin this one around, and then I can grab the dominoes. We'll stick one in this side here, and then it'll come and line up with this hole here. And then I'll have these all the way along, obviously, in all those holes. and it'll just slide together and keep everything perfectly aligned so the glue up is perfectly flush and the boards don't move at all this way, which are two very important things when you're doing glue ups on tabletops. So this is one of the most basic and fundamental ways to use the jointer is on tabletop glue ups like this, but you can also use it for a whole bunch of different things like joints on angles, multiple joints on angles, different connectors, mechanical connectors. This is just to get started. It makes it very easy to get everything perfectly aligned and flush and help you to have really stress-free glue ups.